Ahoy, my friends, Ryder here, and welcome back to another Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis video. Today, I'm going to be taking a look at the new Cait Sith Limit Break Draw. I'm going to be checking out the weapon, the costume, and most importantly, I'm going to make the only comparison we can really make in the game for this weapon, and that is to Cid's Rocket Lance and the astronaut costume that dropped with him, which I happened to pull for. So, that being said, guys, let's get into the draw. Let's talk about this a little bit, all right? So, not going to lie, a little bit surprised there's a limit break draw coming out right now. I think that after thinking about it, you know, it makes sense because we probably would have got a new character right by now, but I think they're slowing it down. But not really psyched that it is a limit break draw. Let's be real, especially on something like this, where I feel like if you're going to pull for this, you're going to be pulling for OB4 and higher, right? So you're going to want to get this OB6. I don't think if you can get this OB6, I'm not sure if the costume would be worth it. I feel like a more concentrated buff debuff duration costume might be overall better for Cait Sith. This one works well with this weapon, but let's go ahead. Let's first check out the costume. So we looked at this a little bit in my last video. I feel like this one is pretty good. Dang, I didn't notice the watch in the first one. That is freaking cool. And he's got all these chains, but it looks like they're all connected. So I feel like it's not as cool because they're supposed to be, it looks like just one giant emblem right here. I think they're just kind of random things, if you guys know what these are. But it's a 7th Heaven jacket, 7th Heaven brand. You know, he's got the freaking aviators that say heaven right in the middle right there. That's pretty fun. He's got the gold teeth and the earrings. They really had fun with this one. And then we got little Cait up here. He's also got his own little necklace going on. He's got his megaphone with all the, like, it looks like jewels and diamonds on it. And then he's got his little hat right here, kind of like me with my backwards hat, and gold saucer jacket, his little boots. Honestly, I think it's a pretty fun banner. I really like high fantasy costumes and stuff like that when it comes to things in the game, but every so often, these can be pretty fun, I think. Alright, so what else we got? Let's take a look at the actual animation here. Let's see what it looks like. Alright. I did 2 pulls on Zack's banner. I didn't go for the costume. I just wanted 1 copy of his exploit weakness weapon since I didn't know if I was going to use it in this guild war. Now I think I won't use it, but you know, the 6K, I ended up getting 2 copies of it. I think it was worth it. Alright, so let's see his actual animation here. Pretty simple. There's no like back animation for when he buffs the team. Sometimes they show both of those. But overall, I think it's alright. Not the greatest animation in the world. So let's take a look at this jacket, alright? So we have Reprieve. Reprieve is awesome. All around awesome, I think. It's pretty good. Sometimes I would even say that having Reprieve, you know, maybe not even on a tank might even be better sometimes. You know, because tanks are really hard to kill in general. So having it on another character is always a nice option to have. Then we have Cool Cat's hat. This one I'm not quite sure. I feel like the buff debuff effect duration was lower than I was expecting it to be. 40% is not that much, which means you're still going to be wanting to build him a little bit in buff debuff duration. So you can't just rely on the costume. Then you get attack stance, command gauge, max, physical and magic ability damage plus 10% here. So it's nice. It works with it works with physical and magic, all elements. It's just going to raise his base damage, and then he gets the little buff debuff. This could have been a plus, I think. Honestly, buff debuff plus at 60% right here would have been pretty nice. But overall, I think the costume is really solid, guys, for Cait Sith. Especially for me, which I don't really have any Cait Sith costumes. And I'll show you guys in a second what I do have. Before we take a look at the weapon, let's actually go take a look at Cid. Alright, so let's go take a look at the Rocket Lance, and let's see what's going on with that. Alright, so we're going to filter out for Cid. We're going to find the Rocket Lance. I have it at OB6. Let's just look at it at OB10. Alright, so this deals 620% magic non-elemental damage. Status ailment enfeeble is applied. Duration 70 seconds OB10 and 50 seconds OB6. Alright, so let's keep that in mind. Then we have an ice imperil that goes high on the first cast at OB6. So I like this weapon better because, you know, it imperils ice and enfeebles at the same time and does damage, right? Then the weapon gives buff debuff extension, right? Which is great. Overall, super great. Plus it has the boost attack all allies. It can be used in both builds, right? Because it's not physical or magic attack. Buff debuff extension for a supporter or breaker is super solid all around. So this weapon was really solid. Now, let's take a look at the actual costumes here. Alright, so I'm not sure if I even have a Cait Sith build. I don't think I do. So let's go down. I don't, but I have a Sid build right here. So we'll look at his costume. His has buff debuff extension all allies, alright, which is 20%, which is pretty solid. It's definitely nice to have on a DPS. Just a little bit of buff debuff duration since you can never really slot it in the sub weapons. And then we have cosmic protection, physical magic defense plus 20%, physical magic attack plus 10%. So this is really good, I feel like. Honestly, I feel like Sid kind of wins, guys, between the two. I feel like Sid wins. I feel like his is overall better. It's not as like focused into a certain thing. His has the enfeeble plus the imperil built into it, right? So like even though you have the enfeeble on Cait Sith, it's missing the imperil. So you have to bring the imperil either way, right? And we'll take a look at this weapon from the bottom, but if you can see here, the physical attack mid to high right here means you'll be double casting this weapon if it's your main source of physical attack up, right? So not only does he have to double cast this weapon if he's the main source of physical attack up, but he also has to worry about imperil, right? And then his other weapon that is a lightning imperil is also a magic defense break, so it doesn't quite pair with this. So overall, I think this banner is still good. It's still really solid for Cait Sith, especially if you're looking for having a general costume for him, right? So let me go back here and let me just show you guys the costumes that I have for Cait Sith. Alright, I'll just go to a random one right here. Let's switch over to Cait Sith and check out his costumes. My grand array of costumes for Cait Sith, which is basically nothing. Alright, so I have three. Alright, so I have a magic defense crit potency, HP physical defense, and physical attack magic defense. So nothing crazy here, guys. So I've been looking for something for Cait Sith for a while. I was thinking about getting the buff debuff duration costume from the voucher ticket, but I'm not exactly sure that I want to do that. Alright, so let's go in here. Let's look for his other costume. Alright, so where is he? Cait Sith, Cait Sith, Cait Sith, Cait Sith. I don't even see him, guys. Is he not in here? I feel like he is in here. Alright, here's the party jacket. It's the pumpkin jacket. Alright, so this one gives magic defense 15%, HP plus 5%, and buff debuff extension plus, so that's 60% right there. So the other one's only, well, this one's only 20% better on that. It's definitely better than this, and I don't think I would waste my costume voucher on Cait Sith. Not that it's necessarily a waste, but I just think that it's probably better used elsewhere. So now that we've kind of taken a look at other options, now we can really go in and check this out a little bit more. Ooh, let's check the actual stamp card and see what we got going on here. Alright, so first page looks pretty much classic. Second page, also the same. Third page, no guaranteed weapons. And like I said, guys, I can just tell you guys right now, I can't really recommend going for this unless you're pulling the weapon, I think, to OB6 or at least OB4. That way, OB4 means that in the future, you know, it'll open up into OB6 at some point in time. Other than that, is it worth it to pull just this costume? I don't know, guys. I think that it's really hard to say for just the costume for the reprieve and this right here. He's not really doing damage ever, right? Now, supporters might become like sub DPS in the future as we are seeing the progression of the game move on, you know, but is this extra 10% attack stance, command gauge, and physical magic damage over a buff debuff duration costume really going to be worth it? You know, the reprieve opens up certain battles for him for sure, so it could be worth it to go for a reprieve, but I feel like you're kind of going for the set on this one. We also have to keep in mind that we have a lot of cool stuff coming up in the future. We have the Ever Crisis Academy. That's going to be basically all month next month. And, you know, the banners are going to be every other stamp is going to give you a guaranteed weapon. So super easy to OB10 weapons. That is going to be the time to really build up something in your guys' kit. So I think for most people, you know, I think that if you're not trying to build the weapon to at least OB4 or above, this is a pretty easy banner to skip, guys. So especially because I don't think it's quite as good as Cid's, unfortunately. So let's take a look at the weapon. All right, so OB1 level 120, 4 ETB cost, Maiming Uppercut, deals 460% physical lightning damage. Status ailment enfeeble is applied, duration 35 seconds. All right, so now we remember that it was 50 seconds at OB6 on the rocket lance and 70 seconds at OB10. So we'll be able to make some comparisons here. All right. Then we have when HP is 50% or more, physical attack is increased. Unfortunately, at OB1, it is low to mid, right? Which makes it really hard to use in like harder content in the game. Especially the R abilities will be lower, etc., etc. It's a limit weapon. Probably you're going for OB6, right? So then we have physical attack all allies boost lightning potency right here. So this is like really focused on a like kind of a damaging R abilities weapons, but Cid's had buff debuff duration on it, which I feel like is probably better. I don't know, it's hard to say. Like how much of a lightning like how much of a difference is Cait Sith gonna really make in the fight as this sub DPS, and how often is that really going to be the case, right? So now let's take a look at it at OB6. Alright, the enfeeble is 5 seconds shorter than Cid's, alright, at OB6, which makes literally no sense to me. OB10, 60 seconds, so it's a whole 10 seconds shorter than Cid's for literally no reason. That doesn't make any sense to me, actually. So that's a little bit of a bummer. I mean, it's only, 10 seconds at OB10 is kind of a lot for sure. But I'm not sure that enfeeble is actually affected by buff debuff duration. So if you guys, I think it is. Oh no, it's a status ailment. So I'm not really sure. Could you guys let me know in the comments if it does? I think the enfeeble is not affected, but I could be wrong. Alright, so OB6, 590% physical lightning damage, inflicts enfeeble, duration 45 seconds, and then when HP is 50% or more, physical attack is increased mid to high. Alright, so we have, here at OB6, physical attack all allies 40, boost lightning potency 27. We have his regular support abilities right here in Circle Sigil Break. So it is a cool weapon. It's definitely nice to have enfeeble on a new character, especially this one focuses lightning, and then we can have Cid for ice, and I'm guessing we're going to periodically be getting them, for all of the elements. I feel like this would have worked a lot better with an Imperil on it instead of this physical attack all. It opens it up so that you don't necessarily need to bring it with someone else, but what it does is now it forces us to bring Imperil with something else. So, I would have rather had the supporter and the breaker doing the imperiling and stuff like that. I guess they're trying to support, but it feels like a physical attack buff is something that links more into a healer, that kind of support. But I guess it's hard to say, so we're just kind of going with it as we may. Alright, so OB10, 664 physical attack, 710% physical lightning damage, only 40% less than Murasame. So still pretty dang strong. Enfeeble will last 60 seconds with an extension of 12. And when HP is 50% or more, physical attack is increased mid to high, duration 20 seconds, 46 over 39. Overall, I think it's a pretty solid banner. I will probably pull for it for a couple different reasons here, right? So when I'm like trying to figure out if I want to pull a banner, I tally up the pros and the cons. Now, a pro for me is that I don't really have any good Cait Sith costumes. This can serve as an all-around Cait Sith costume. It has buff duration on it. It raises his overall physical and magic attack damage, and it has reprieve. The weapon has enfeeble, which opens up another slot for enfeeble. Cait Sith is a very strong support with his ultimate weapon, right? And then on top of that, it will be effective in the Guild War, and the Guild War is the most fun part of the game for me, guys. So that is kind of my thoughts on this banner, how I will be approaching it. But like I said, guys, I think that if you're on the fence and you're not really sure, I think that this is probably an easy skip for most people. I would say that this banner is probably like a B+, and then Cid's is more in like the A rank, right? So it's not quite as good in my opinion, but it's still super solid in and of itself. So I hope that helps you guys make your decisions. If you have questions, drop a comment. We can talk about it. Other people will hit you up in there. So hopefully you guys can come to a general consensus about what you want to do. If you do end up pulling, I wish you guys the best luck out there. Absolute best luck. I hope you just crush it with the pulls. If you end up holding off, there's a lot of cool stuff on the horizon, so you don't really need to worry about it. There's going to be cool stuff no matter what coming in the next month. So that being said, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I wish you guys all the best in this Guild War number 10. If you did enjoy the video, please don't forget to drop a like, subscribe to the channel for more Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis content. Catch you guys on the next one. Peace.